Hi. So like we talked about, this week we are focusing on volleying. So I wanted you to think about what you might be able to volley with, what body parts you might be able to volley with, and then also some implements, so objects that you can carry that you might be able to strike and volley with. So hopefully you have some of those things ready to go. We're going to work on volleying. So like we talked about, volleying is being able to strike or kick a ball before it touches the ground. So we are going to challenge ourselves to try to keep the ball up into the air as long as we can. All right? By the end of today or by the end of the week, if you've been practicing, you should be able to receive and send an object. So when I receive it, okay, I'm going to be catching it, okay, but we're not catching, we're volleying, right? And send an object into the air, okay, consecutively and consistently. All right, so hopefully you can work, at your own pace with your own objects at home and challenging yourself however you feel comfortable with to try to see how well you can volley. We're also going to try to differentiate the direction and the height. So we're going to try to make those directions and the height a little bit different. So we're going to challenge ourselves that way as well. And we are going to be working independently, all right? You might want to, talk to a friend or talk to a sibling or something like that. If you want to work together, that's fine also. But we're at home. We're supposed to be at home, so we're really going to work independently. And most of all, the most important thing is let's have fun. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is if we are going to volley with a balloon, all right? So if you haven't blown up your balloon already, let's blow that up. And the first thing that we're going to practice doing is striking with the palm of our hand. So all we're going to do is strike the balloon, and we're going to catch it, okay? So strike the balloon and catch it. And you can choose if you want to strike with your right hand or if you want to strike with your left hand. Either one is fine, all right? So we're just going to do that one time and catch it. Once we feel comfortable with striking it and catching it, we are going to try to strike and catch twice, all right? So strike, strike, and catch, all right? When you feel comfortable twice, try to strike it as many times as you can, okay? So you're going to challenge yourself trying to strike maybe for 30 seconds. Maybe you're just going to, your goal would be 10 strikes, all right? So try to challenge yourself as many times as you can. If the balloon starts to get too far away, try to notice what you're doing differently with your hands. So if you want to keep the balloon close to you, okay, notice that my hand is facing straight up, okay? My hand is not facing off one direction or the other, all right? So practice that and see how you do. All right, so the next thing, after we've challenged ourselves to try to keep the balloon up into the air as long as we can, the next thing we would like to do is, if you have chalk, okay, if you have chalk, you can make a circle, draw a circle if you're outside. If you have a hula hoop at home, awesome, you can lay that down. Or if you don't have a chalk or a hula hoop and you'd rather practice inside, you can just find an area that you can mark off with, maybe you can roll up your bed sheet or something and make a little area that designates where you're standing. Okay, so with your balloon, you're going to practice volleying still. Volleying just with the palm of your hand, and you're going to stay right inside of your hula hoop. Okay, so if you start to move outside of the hula hoop, all right, you're going to stop, and then you're going to come back in. All right. This time I want you to count how many strikes you can make with the palm of your hand. Okay, you can alternate palms or alternate hands while you're inside your designated area. Okay, if the balloon goes outside and you have to come outside of the designated area, that's the limit. So let's say I'm on number 10. Oh my goodness, I had to move. 10 was my max, the most volleys that I got. So I'm going to come back into my balloon, into the designated area, and I am going to see how many I can do if I could challenge myself to do a little bit better, okay? So I want you to try that with your balloon and your designated area. All right, we're back. So you can use your designated area still, or if you want to just practice the next task that I'm going to have you do, I'd like you to try to see what body parts you're able to volley the balloon with, okay? So we've worked on the palm of our hand, all right? Think about some other body parts that you might be able to use. What about the back side of your hand? Okay, so maybe the back side of your hand. What about your elbow? Try to volley with your elbow. What about your shoulder? Okay, what about your shoulder? Oh my goodness. So if I volley with my shoulder, then the balloon might come down, but in order to volley, we want to be able to strike our balloon before it touches the ground. So I might need to bend my knees, I might need to get real low, use the palm of my hand again, and then start volleying with another body part. Okay? So my challenge to you is this time, volley with different body parts. You can choose maybe even your knees or your feet. Okay? See how many times you can volley with a different body part than just your palm and before it touches the ground. All right? So try that. All right, so next, we are going to get our designated area again. If you have your hula hoop, or if you want to come step back inside the chalk circle that you drew, or if you want to, whatever designated area you have. All right, and this time, we're going to continue to volley the balloon, with whatever body part you can think of, okay? And I'd like you to alternate that body part. So it's not always the palm of your hand, it's not always your head, it's not always your elbow, okay? If it comes out of the designated area, maybe you can get it back with your foot. And if not, that's okay. Falls to the ground, you come back in your designated area, you see how many times, how many volleys attempts you had, and try to beat that score. Also, I'd like you to notice what happens, like what have you done differently to make the balloon either stay close to you or to go away from your body, okay? Are you moving your body differently? Are you angling? So angles means you're bending your body, maybe you're bending your shoulder, or maybe you're not striking with as much force. So force is how hard I strike, right? If I don't strike with much force with my shoulder, the balloon falls straight down. But if I forcefully strike it, the balloon goes up into the sky. All right? So this time, inside your designated area, volleying with different body parts. All right. How many volleys did you get? This time, we are going to go for a different ball, okay? A different size ball. You might only have the tennis ball that I gave you, and that's great. You might have a soccer ball. That's great. You might have some other ball lying around the house, all right? This time, if you are inside, if you're inside your house, I would advise you to practice this outside because the balloon isn't going to wreck the furniture, right? But these balls are a little bit harder, or something that you find that might be a little bit harder. You want to make sure that your house stays nice and safe, and your mom and dad don't want to get upset with me for having you do this and break stuff around the house. So step outside, and we'll do the next task outside. So you have the ball or the object of your choice that you'd like to volley with. This time we're going to start the same way we did with the balloon, okay? We're just going to try to volley with the palm of our hand, okay? If that's a little bit tricky, what I'd like you to do is start the same way we did with the balloon. Volley once and catch. Volley once and catch. And if you can't catch it, that's fine too. Volley and let it hit the ground, okay? Volley and let it hit the ground. all right? If you're using a soccer ball, okay, a soccer ball is a little bit harder to volley. You don't want to actually catch the ball and lift it up. That's not volleying. It's just striking. It's not catching and throwing, right? It's just striking, all right? So choose which object you want. If you want to practice one volley and catch or one volley and hit the ground, great, all right? I'll meet you back in a few. Try to get at least 2 in a row. Can you get 1, 2? Can you get 1, 2? Okay, I'm going to challenge you to try to get 2, and if you come back and you've done 10, that's great too. If you can only get 1, that's fine. Just keep practicing. All right, we're back. So we're outside. We have a different object rather than the balloon, and we also have to think about the size of the object, how heavy it is. Okay, if we have a tennis ball that I had given you, maybe if you have your soccer ball, okay, if you want to practice volleying with a soccer ball, something, right? So we're going to volley with our hands, all right? And I'd like to challenge you to see if you can volley with a different body part as well, okay? This is going to get a little tricky. This is why we have to be careful. We have to make sure our surroundings are, we're away from any object that might potentially harm us, okay? So just be careful, be safe. All right, so I'm going to start to volley. Maybe I start with the palm of my hand, okay, whoop. And then start to volley maybe with my shoulder, maybe with my knee, okay? See if I can volley with different body parts, all right? And I'm going to challenge you. If you do decide to use maybe your shoulder, if you do decide to use maybe your shoulder, okay, volley and catch. That's pretty difficult, but some of you might be able to do that. If you volley with your knee, just catch, okay? So I'll challenge you to try to use different body parts to volley with a different size of ball. All right, so we're back. This time, we're going to designate an area that we don't want to get out of, okay? We want to stay inside an area, work on our volleys, and see if we can volley without being outside of our area, all right? So I'm just going to volley once and catch and see how it's going, okay? And then I'm just going to try to keep volleying inside my area, all right? Using the palm of your hand. Now, if you think that you're able to use different body parts, to try to volley, okay? This gets a little bit trickier, right? Because the ball, why do you think that is? Why is it trickier when you don't have your balloon? This is a little bit heavier. Heavier things fall faster, right? And this is kind of tiny. So if you only have a tennis ball, it's kind of tiny, right? So it's a little bit trickier to volley with just the tennis ball, okay? And some of you are probably really good at soccer. I'm not that great at soccer, at least volleying with a soccer ball or even a tennis ball, but you could practice volleying with your foot, all right? So we're staying inside of our designated area, and we're trying to volley with different sides of our bodies, different body parts, okay? Meet you back. All right, we're back. So, were you successful staying inside your designated area? It probably got a little bit trickier, didn't it? All right, so another way that we can volley, like we had talked about, is with implements. So implements are objects that you can strike the ball with. So volleying is very common in one of the sports that I love to play, and maybe some of you do as well, tennis, all right? So if you have a tennis racket, you're going to grab your tennis racket, okay, and practice volleying with this implement. You might not have a tennis racket, and that is okay. You might have a baseball bat, or you might have just a pole of some sort. That would be an implement. That would be something that you could use to strike the ball to keep it from touching the ground, right? The other thing that you might have at home is something like a pool noodle, okay? So if you have a pool noodle, I'd like you to go back with your balloon, okay, and practice volleying with the balloon and the pool noodle. I don't suggest you volley the tennis ball with a pool noodle because the pool noodle is what? The pool noodle is soft, it's not very heavy, it's not very hard, and if you notice when I tried to volley the tennis ball, it doesn't really work, right? Because the ball is too heavy. So if you have your pool noodle, use your tennis ball, or use your balloon, excuse me, all right? If you have your tennis racket, you can use your tennis ball, all right? And again, remember, volleying is trying to get the object back into the air before it touches the ground. So what I'd like you to practice with, okay, either implement is fine, but you're gonna strike the ball with an implement and catch it. Strike and catch, okay? And once you feel comfortable doing that, then start to strike it more than once, okay? Maybe 3 times, okay? Maybe more, all right? So you can challenge yourself to see how long you can strike the ball without it touching the ground, all right? So that's your challenge. If you have your balloon, the same thing, all right? If you have your balloon, just try to strike the ball or strike the balloon as many times as you can before it touches the ground. Again, you can practice. You can just do one at a time. 1 and catch. 1 and catch. All right? So I'll meet you back. Okay, how did it go? So the next thing, as you might guess, is we are going to designate an area that we want to stay in, all right? So if you're using a tennis ball and a tennis racket, hopefully you're still outside, right? And you've been working outside. If you used a balloon and a pool noodle, same thing, okay? Probably outside, but inside would be okay. This time, I really want you to focus on staying inside the designated area, all right? And we're going to volley with our implement, all right? So stay in the designated area. If for some, when the ball falls outside the designated area, that is totally fine. Just pick it up and come back in and try again, all right? I'm challenging you to count how many times you can do this, okay? How many times can you strike the ball, volley the ball without going outside of your designated area, okay? Let's try it for 30 seconds to start and see how many volleys you can get. If you get 2, awesome. If you get 1, awesome. Just keep practicing, all right? And then I'll challenge you to try for a minute and see how long you can volley, if you can volley a minute inside your designated area. Okay, so we've practiced volleying with our body parts. We've practiced volleying with an implement. Now we are going to try volleying into something, okay? Before we were just trying to volley up into the air, and now we are going to work on our direction, okay? So the direction, hopefully you have a basket, maybe your laundry basket, maybe a basket that you store something in, maybe some bins that you use to hold your clothes, something. If you have a basket, awesome. Let's use our basket. So you have your laundry basket. We are going to set the laundry basket down, or whatever basket you have, all right? We're going to set the laundry basket down, and we're going to take 5 steps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all right? 5 steps. We're going to take the balloon, okay? If you want to start with the balloon, I would suggest starting with something that you feel confident with, so the balloon might be a good thing to start with. And what we're going to practice is just volleying and trying to get the balloon into the basket, all right? Now, think about the balloon, right? The balloon is really light, so it might not go exactly where you want. So my basket's pretty small, my balloon is pretty big, okay? We'll see if I can get it in there, all right? So I'm just going to use the palm of my hand, and I'm going to try to volley it into the basket, all right? The balloon, like I said, is a little bit tricky, okay? But if you can aim for the basket and get your direction correct, that's what we're looking for, okay? So, oh, I took 3 times, almost got it, all right? Maybe your balloon is a little bit smaller, your basket's a little bit bigger. That's great, okay? So we're just going to focus on keeping our palm facing the target as we volley into the basket, okay? So I'll challenge you. You're going to be 5 steps away, all right? If you are not successful, just take 1 step closer, okay? When you are successful volleying into the basket, take 1 step back, all right? If you feel like the balloon is getting too easy, or if you feel like you want to try a different object, okay, maybe go back to the tennis ball. Same thing, okay? Take the tennis ball, 5 steps back, use the palm of your hand, and you're going to try to strike the ball into the basket, okay? Try as many times as you can, as you would like to. I'll challenge you to try for at least 1.5 minutes. See if you can volley the ball into the basket. All right? And I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to do is work on volleying the ball into our basket with an implement. So whatever you used to volley your balloon or your tennis ball or whatever ball you have, we're going to use an implement to try to strike the ball, volley it into the basket, okay? So again, 5 steps back. If it works, if you can volley it into the basket, I'm going to challenge you to move back. If you feel like you need to step closer, you can step closer, okay? So focus on striking the ball or balloon, okay, as it comes down. And that wasn't very good, but that's okay. Strike it, follow through towards your target, okay? If I have a tennis racket and a tennis ball, same thing, okay? I'm going to volley the ball into the basket, okay? My tennis racket, the face of my racket, or the face of whatever implement, if you have a face, is going to be aiming at my target, okay? So I'm going to volley the ball into the basket. And again, you might not be successful on your first try, and that's fine. And if you just take as many times as you need to try to volley the ball into your target. All right, so we're back. The last thing that we're going to do is I want you to choose one of the things that we did, okay? If you want to just volley in the air, okay, with no designated spot, just practice that. If you'd like to use your target and try to volley into the target, try that. If you want a designated area and use your tennis ball and volley with your body parts, try that. So you choose which you'd like. And I want you to set the timer for 1 minute and see how many volleys that you can get. So your minute was up. How did you do? How many did you get? Were you pretty consistent? Did you get a lot of consecutive volleys? Okay. What did you do in order to maintain that consistency? Maybe you used the same type of strike. Maybe your palm was facing the same way. If you chose to use body parts, what kind of force did you use? Did you have to hit it really hard? What happens if I hit it really hard? What happens? You probably noticed that it goes really high, really far. You don't have as much control, right? What happens when I did use a lot of force? The balloon, I wasn't in control, right? So the higher my balloon or my ball gets, the harder it is to, well, maybe the balloon, not so much, but a ball. The harder I hit my ball, the less control I have, and the less consistency I have to maintain that continuous motion up into the air, up into the volley, right? If I kick the ball really hard with not much control, I'm not able to volley the ball very much, all right? So what I want you to work on this week is just practice your volleying, practice staying in control, practice using your body parts, and just having fun. All right? Great job today, and we will see you next time.